right. I want to talk about two G words. You've probably heard this first one.
Gentrification.
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 But maybe you haven't heard this one.
GENTEfication.
Gentrification is the process of wealthier people moving into a poor urban area, bringing along new developments that increase property values.
With that redevelopment, affordable housing becomes unaffordable for the people who are already living there.
Gentrification is when that gentrification is carried out by Latinos in a predominantly Latino area. Is one better than the other? And what happens when a neighborhood is gentrified and gentified? I went to this Chicago neighborhood to look for answers to those questions.
Would you consider yourself a gentifier?
This story is about the hyphen between Latinos and gentrification.
We are at my childhood home on 18th Place, and I brought you here because I think this is right at the beginning, the journey of what it means to like be in a working class family.
Lizeth Garza is a program director at a Chicago nonprofit. She grew up in Pilsen, a neighborhood in Chicago's Lower West Side. The neighborhood was named one of the coolest in the world by Forbes, and one of its main avenues, 18th Street, one of the coolest streets in the world. But it wasn't always that way.
This is also to share that, you know, the block was hot. The block might still be hot. And so I wasn't really allowed outside.
I remember my grandmother would sit on the steps with her friends and she would tell me, you can't go past these buildings. If you go past these buildings, you're going in.
You see this was installed way back when to prevent gangbangs or like drive-bys, I'm sorry. So yeah, people petitioned on the block to like install it to not have drive-bys go by so quickly. So it was one way of like preventing, you know, the pass-through of the streets to turn left or right immediately.
Established in the 1800s as a working-class neighborhood, Pilsen was first home to thousands of Polish, Czechoslovakian, and Lithuanian immigrants who came in search of well-paid jobs. In the 1950s, its demographics started shifting following the construction of the City-Stevenson Expressway and the University of Illinois at Chicago, which displaced Mexican families from a neighborhood just above Pilsen. As more Mexican families moved in, European migrant families moved westward to the suburbs.
And one thing I didn't know before embarking on this story was that by the 1970s, Pilsen became the first majority Latino neighborhood in Chicago.
No, it's still very much Latin, Mexican migrant population, but a lot of different ways of families have come through. Like, I know this family and that family still has access to their property, but there's a family across the street who got bought out. You know, developers or people would come in and sell their homes for cash, and families, you know, were like, hell yeah, we need the cash, why not?
I want to take a moment to tell you something. My name is Fernando Hurtado, and I'm a video journalist with more than 8 years of experience, most recently at NBC and Telemundo. I left that job earlier this year to launch this channel, In The Hyphen, to tell deeply researched, visually rich stories about US Latinos, and I need your help. Please subscribe and turn on the little notification button so you don't ever miss a single video. Thank you so much. All right, now back to the video.
Today, Pilsen is a neighborhood that's as much known for its vibrant art scene and Mexican culture as the change it's gone through in recent years.
Taxes are up on average across Chicago. Some freshly gentrified Latino communities are seeing some really huge spikes.
Developers are buying property, flipping housing units, and raising living costs.
And longtime families are feeling the pressure as Pilsen develops, changes, and grows.
The neighborhood's proximity to downtown Chicago has attracted a flurry of developers and new residents. As a result, the median household income in Pilsen rose 150% from 2006 to 2020, according to the American Community Survey, with both numbers adjusted for inflation. At the same time, Pilsen's Hispanic or Latino population has declined from 88.9% in 2000 to 71% in 2020.
Híjole, una renta te ha aumentado, digamos, de 800 que estaba. Ahorita una renta te está costando hasta 2,000, 2,500.
My grandmother lives in Pilsen as well. She bought a building like in the 70s, and the property tax right now is astronomical.
7 to 8 years ago, I was interested in purchasing a home. Unfortunately, that home was about $500,000, way out of my budget range, nowhere near somebody who was working at a nonprofit income. and the foundation was lousy, it was like lopsided, so there was a lot of work that needed to be done. So someone more recently, I'd say in the last 3-4 years, came in, bought it up, and built up a new property.
Lisette Garza was able to find a condo she could afford eventually.
Yes, I might be able to afford, you know, a 2-bedroom condo at this point in time, but really what I'm trying to like advocate for here is the like working class people. Who are the people who can't afford that? And like those are the ones that need the most support and help.
So to me, one of the most telling examples of the change Pilsen has seen is that growing up in Chicago, I would always hear my dad, who's a Mexican immigrant, talk about Pilsen with that Spanish accent, usually talking about friends or family who lived or worked in the area. And as the years have progressed, the pronunciation I've heard much more is Pilsen, as, you know, friends around my age who are non-Hispanic or non-Mexican talk about it in the context of the arts, the businesses, the restaurants, and the living accommodations that are now in the area.
So there's no question that Pilsen has been gentrified, or at the very least is actively gentrifying. But is it also being gentified? The term gentrification comes from the Spanish word for people, gente, and was coined in 2007 by Guillermo Uribe, the owner of Eastside Love, a bar in Los Angeles' Boyle Heights neighborhood. Uribe, who was born in Boyle Heights, told Los Angeles Magazine in 2014, quote, "If gentrification is happening, it might as well be from people who care about the existing culture. In the case of Boyle Heights," he said, "it would be best if the gente decided to invest in improvements because they are more likely to preserve its integrity." There was even a show on Netflix that explored the concept of gentrification. It was called GENTEfication.
You haven't paid rent 2 months. You double the rent unless you coconut sellout. Coconuts are delicious.
There are other stories like Garza's of higher income Latinos who've been able to make a life in Pilsen. Panaderia Nuevo León is a staple in the neighborhood, serving affordable pan dulce to the community since 1973. During the pandemic, the family's granddaughter opened a cafe next door, featuring modern twists on Mexican coffee and food.
Mi Corazón Cafe, it's a homage to my grandmother. Everything is in honor of my grandmother. Any little detail you see in the cafe, it's connected to my grandmother. You see her pictures on the wall, the papel picado.
Then there are the owners of Del Toro, a Mexican restaurant started by the kids of the owners of this Latino-owned liquor store.
It started in 2011. It's a family restaurant started by my brother and I. It's a Mexican restaurant serving, you know, traditional food like tacos and tortas, and we have a bar as well where, you know, have tequilas and margaritas and, you know, just a full bar, full service.
And would you consider yourself a gentifier?
I directly proportionally benefit from this class and the classism that happens with it, and I think that's what a lot of people, sometimes is lacking in the conversation. And again, the nuance, right? It's not just racialized, and it's not just like, oh, this is where Latinos are from and have built up, but it's also like there's a classism that's happening.
I'm not sure about that. I have received good and bad from the cafe, you know, like I'm a proud Latina. I grew up, I was born and raised in Pilsen. So I do say that, you know, I am a Latina business owner.
And I came up to you, I was like, can I interview about gentrification? And you're like, I think I'm part of the problem. What do you mean by that?
I'm not from the city, and I just moved here for school, and like the rising rent costs, I feel like that's part of the issue, but my parents helped me with that.
I see a lot of people since, I think my family's had businesses here since the 70s, and I grew up in them, so I've seen all of our families kind of from start to when they come from Mexico till, you know, they do well and they move out, and I see, you know, some of the kids either my age or a little younger or a little older come back, and I'll start seeing them kind of reinvest either close to where they grew up or, you know, just looking for areas. And
I was really curious to see if Pilsen residents saw a difference between gentrification and gentification. Is one slightly better than the other, or are they one and the same? Some of the people I interviewed still live in Pilsen, while others are former residents.
Oh my God, it's like picking the lesser of two evils. Like, no, I don't think so.
I think gentrification would be, or is better because it keeps our people here in the community.
I think they're one and the same. And I think the gentrification is like a little rebellion in this way because we also deserve beautiful new spaces.
But unfortunately, I myself am a gentrifier. I moved out of Pilsen. I was born and raised here in Pilsen, lived practically my whole life. But because of the high costs and also marriage and work, I moved out of Pilsen into the south side, into a neighborhood that is not well off, has had a lot of disinvestment.
I don't know. I think it's a little bit different. I had to, coming from within the neighborhood, I can't say that it's bad, right? Gentrification is just holding it down. That's defending what's yours.
In general, just any kind of development or a reinvestment or investment in a neighborhood is good. If it comes from people who are familiar with it, great.
I think that's also the reason on why I try to be as active in community as possible. Right? You have an idea of you're politically involved, you're community involved. Are you understanding of what other nonprofits and organizations are doing? How are you supporting and giving back?
For longtime residents Moises and Arturo, the effects of both gentrification and gentrification are the same.
Antes estaba bien peligroso, pasaba uno en la noche y a veces hasta golpeaban a uno. Pero ahorita ya está todo bien calmado.
Creo yo que por lo mismo de que como es más caro todo, hay más seguridad también.
¿Tú crees que la gentrificación en Pilsen ha valido la pena?
Yo creo que sí. Yo creo que sí, porque ha habido mejores oportunidades tanto para los negocios como para la gente que vive aquí, para los trabajos también. Creo yo que hay trabajos donde pagan un poquito más mejor que en otros. Y pues yo pienso que sí ha valido la pena.
But for Lisette Garza and Everardo Garcia, the questions I'm asking should be directed at other people entirely, not at residents, not at business owners, or even landlords.
I think the issue is when they get the tax bill every, twice a year, and it's gone up, 100%, 200%. They're kind of forced to do it, even though they don't want to. I've seen people in our meetings at the community meetings at Juarez High School where people, hey, I don't want to raise rents, but I have to. And it's kind of where that point where we have to start looking at that and see why the city, the county, and the state are charging those rates. And I don't know where they get those numbers from and why and how, but I think we should be focusing on that as well.
And who's driving all these prices up, and who's driving the rents up, who's driving the taxes up, and those are politicians. Those are elected officials. That's the conversation that we need to be having. I don't think the question so much is on the business owners themselves. They're just doing what they got to do to survive.
It's a sentiment the co-creator of the Netflix show Gentrified agrees with himself.
We worked on Gentrified for 6 years, almost 7. And asking a lot of very difficult questions. And by the end of it, all I learned is that there's no simple answer for any of it. That ultimately what we experience with gentrification and gentrification is the system. It's not a broken system. It's working exactly the way it's meant to work. And that's the problem. For me, it's like if I can't open a business in the neighborhood where I was born and raised, then where the hell do I belong? That ultimately was the question.
Aren't we tired of running? Aren't we tired? What? No one's telling us to stay and fight. And I think that's the really upsetting part. My family all the time was like, oh, we got to move to the burbs to have a better opportunity and to get out of the hood. But no one's telling you to stay in the hood and fight.
What do you think? Is there a difference between gentrification and gentrification?